Pain, loss, grief, joy, and love are fundamental realities of the human condition. Live long enough and we will experience it all. We will know the ups and downs of relationships, the highs and lows of living day to day, all with the realization, and it's a realization whether you are conscious of it or not, all with the realization that the end of all living things is death. As soon as we are born, whatever twists and turns we experience in the story of our lives, the end result will be death. And the reality of death doesn't lessen the acuteness of the pain that we feel or dull the pleasures of joy. It is a fact of life. And we are forgiven if we wonder what it is about us or in us that keeps us going through the reality of death, that keeps us going through our tears. Mary and Martha know all about ups and downs and twists and turns. They have experienced a roller coaster of emotions in a short span of time. They had to endure the inconsolable grief of the death of their brother Lazarus and the bewildering absence of Jesus when they needed him most to respond to Lazarus' failing health. And then in the presence of Jesus, they experience the depths of God's love and the presence of God's glory when Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. So in the midst of the human condition with its ups and downs and twists and turns, Mary and Martha have seen God revealed in Jesus. Because of all they have seen, especially in the raising of their brother from the dead, they can now accept Jesus for who he says he is. Oh, he's been known by many names by this time. But I think Mary and Martha now know him to be the bread of heaven, the true vine, the light of the world, the Word become flesh, and most of all, the resurrection and the life. And given what they now know, it shouldn't be a surprise. Let's throw Jesus a dinner. It's the least we can do. And so Mary, Martha, and Lazarus throw a dinner for Jesus. And the disciples are there. And Jesus there, Lazarus, the newly resuscitated Lazarus is all there. They're there. And Martha offers selfless service to Jesus and the disciples. And then there's Mary. Mary brings out a ridiculous amount of perfume, extracted from a rare plant from some distant land that apparently costs a whole year's wages. She is so grateful. She is so just excited about what Jesus done. She is so filled with love and gratitude that she just wastes all that she has to bring to Jesus. And she uses the perfume. She wipes Jesus' feet. She wipes it with her hair. And apparently the scent of the perfume just fills the entire house. Think of it. Think of her experience, even with the stench of death still fresh in her nostril. Mary fills the room with the fragrant odor of expensive perfume, countering the grief and trauma of death with the beautiful expression of love. After all she has seen, after all that Jesus has done for her, and with the sure knowledge even then that Jesus is probably heading to his death, all she can think to do is bring all of who she is and all that she has to Jesus. All she wants to do is to demonstrate abundant love, selfless service, extravagant devotion to the one who loved her the one who nourished her, the one who brought her life. Whatever else is on the horizon, right now, she has Jesus. But even with Mary's demonstration of love, gratitude, and devotion, among the followers of Jesus is one who is unable to respond well to the presence of God. You know, the first thing I said was, there's always one. I don't care how good it is. I don't care how wonderful it's going. There's always one. I don't care how excited and much fun we're having. There's always that knucklehead in the corner. Just can't get with the groove. And so there is one among them who can't even see the beauty in it. There will be some like Judas who have seen and experienced firsthand Jesus as the bread of heaven, the true vine, the light of the world, the word become flesh, even the resurrection of life, and still be unable to let the encounter transform them. And just as there are Marys in the room willing to reveal love and longing of their hearts, there are Judases whose moral imaginations are closed, limited, and ungracious. Oh, and I know Judas is an easy villain to identify. We know too much about him. And if we didn't, John was going to let you know he's a stiller. But we know too much. He's easy. And we can easily believe in his cynicism and his negativity and his corruption. But the truth is, there are some, maybe some of us, who have allowed pain and grief to overwhelm our capacity to be moved by what is good and loving and beautiful. Despite what he has seen, Judas does not and cannot allow time and room for a revelation of God's glory. He's offended by a show of love and worship. Can you believe it? Offended by a show of love and worship. And so he's left with a diabolical imagination. He only sees waste and loss in Mary's act of love. He can only think of monetizing and commoditizing her act of generosity. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? He's so moved by greed that he's unable to appreciate Mary's witness. Judas turned away completely from his home and place with Jesus. Oh, but Mary has no attachment to possessions. She's not preoccupied with plans or achievements right now. She's not interested in debating over the appropriate ways to behave in the presence of Jesus, the one who's the resurrection of life. The right now, the questions about her gifts or how extravagant one should or could be are irrelevant to Mary. Right now, for her, is the pivotal, fulsome time to show love, service, and gratitude to Jesus. Mary's action is the action of someone who knows grief, pain, and death are inevitable, but also know that Jesus is the revelation of God in their midst. This is the action of a woman who will not waste her time on negativity or cynicism. All right, now I'm getting in trouble. She's not going to waste her time on negativity and cynicism. She's not going to waste this time with Jesus on negativity. And so it's not going to happen. She's going to rely on her love, her faith, her relationship with Jesus in the face of death. And that is perhaps exactly the witness we need during this season of Lent. Perhaps Mary's behavior should invite us to get off the roller coaster for one moment, just one moment, and spend time with the bread of heaven. Spend time with to rest at the feet of the true vine, to bask in the light of the world, to be open to the word become flesh, and to put our trust in the resurrection and the life. I'm talking about letting go of the need to have it all figured out. Letting go of the need to have to settle every question. Letting go of the need of having to know what's going to happen around the corner. Just for one moment. One moment. Forget about all the negative stuff that's coming in. It's going to be out there when you go out there anyway. But for one moment, sit at Jesus' feet. Recline with the source of life and express as much love as our hearts can contain. What if we, even as we live with the pain and trauma of life's ups and downs, twists and turns, what if we just focus less on how to fill the time, which is fleeting and sometimes short, and focus more on the present moment in the presence of the one who promises abundant life and grace upon grace? What if we embrace Kairos time? The present, pivotal, fulsome moment right now when the only thing that is important is being with Jesus and letting our emotions be what they are without shame or apology. What if we did that? What if we allow ourselves permission to forget politics and economics and give over to the promptings of love and serve and share? What would it look like if we, in this second, in this very minute, in this 1 hour, resist what is cynical and negative and give all of who we are and all that we have to what is loving, what is nourishing, and what is life-giving? Can you imagine what that would look like? Oh, I know. We're surrounded by people who don't know how to do it. As soon as you come up with, I've heard people tell me, you too excited. Get nervous. We've seen people who cannot be moved to offer service to others, who don't know how to be gentle or hospitable to the vulnerable or share what they have. We've seen the effect of a lack of moral imagination. The moral imagination that sees the person right in front of us as God's beloved, filled with good and filled with love. We lack that imagination. We've seen the people who lack it. We've seen what they think. They are the people who think social justice is a socialist plot. You've seen them. They're the people who they believe that speaking honorably and respectfully to people who are different from them is political correctness. Oh, see, I'm probably going to be, somebody going to be mad at me now. But no, but you know what I'm talking about. These are the ones who think that a gift of abundance to others is a waste that could be sold for money. It takes no imagination. It takes no imagination to call people bad names. It takes no imagination whatsoever to withhold what you have from someone in need. It takes no imagination whatsoever to be selfish and self-regarding. It takes no imagination to be negative and hate when love is in the room. So every act of love, every act of gratitude, every act of selfless service is likely to be opposed by someone who is negative or cynical or pessimistic. But Mary's act of love is revealing. I hope you remember it. I hope you remember it. Because although we remain on our journey home, even though we will still go on experiencing ups and downs, we'll go on carrying grief and trauma, we'll be crying more tears than we care to admit. And although some of our emotions will be hard to hold and the way forward will never seem like it's easily discerned, Jesus remains present with us in those times. And I'll clue you in on something. When it comes to Jesus, when it comes to love, when it comes to life, it's okay. It's okay to be honest. It's okay if we haven't figured it all out. It's okay during this season of Lent, you didn't quite get every question answered. It's okay if we are not all that we want to be or should be. It's okay in our failure, our brokenness, our doubt, our hesitation, that the most and the best we can do It's to cry out for abundant love. It's to act in selfless service, or to just give extravagant devotion to the one who is known as the bread of heaven, the light of the world, the word become flesh, the resurrection and the life. Through our tears, just to behold the very revelation of God, to fall before the presence of God. Just take one moment, one time to do it. One time to do it. Take this Kairos time to let God be God for you. I just remember when I was in my early 20s and I was going to the club four nights a week. Oh, I was partying. I was having a good time. And we would go 4 nights a week. But Sunday was a big night in a club called Tracks. And it was ostensibly that night, it was for all of the queer black folk. And from Richmond, Virginia, all the way up to New York, people would converge on Washington, D.C. for Tracks, which was the biggest club in D.C. But on Sunday nights, we'd go and we'd have a wonderful dancing and having a good time with our friends. And probably between last call and the rising of the sun, for 15 minutes, this DJ would start sampling gospel music. I mean, it would be like a black church service going on in the place. And in that very moment, in that fulsome, pivotal time, all minds would cease thinking about hookups, breakups, makeups, or whatever ups. They'd forget all about that. And you will see tears and hands going up. You will actually see a veritable worship. It's people who had not even been to church that day, or who hadn't been to church in years. In that very moment, in a club that many of them told never to go to, for 15 minutes, in that fulsome, pivotal moment of time, they would give all they have in worship to Jesus. That's what I mean. That pivotal moment of time, no matter where you are, no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening around you, no matter how many people have rejected us, no matter what ups and downs, twists and turns, that moment, that pivotal moment, when it's just you and Jesus. And if anybody's in the room who sees a negative in it, remember what Jesus said. Oh, leave them alone. Amen.